Yeah, start whenever.
The pressure's off for us now.
You can chill down there.
Yeah, we can chill.
Now we relax. It's okay. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to another episode, guys. As you can see, different settings.
Listen, we're brand new, bro. Talk to us nice.
Leveling up.
Damn
You know
right.
what I mean?
Look at this, Allah Look at this, bro.
Bro,
We've got black padding, bro. Have you seen this in your life?
we're Qahuti, take it out.
Yeah, they've been on the floors there.
Wow. I thought it's the floor, bro.
You know what I mean? Welcome back to Scope. You have today special guests. People that we've wanted to collaborate with for a very long time. It's your boys, Inspyre, Mohammed and Sharmake. Welcome.
Yes.
How you guys feeling?
Feeling good.
Feeling
Feeling overwhelmed. you
Really?
know? Feeling overwhelmed. But welcome to London, where you have clean water,
Clean water, yeah.
tap water. And
You know the funny thing is, yeah.
Cheap.
These men want to talk about water when it's one thing they really don't have.
Literally.
Yeah,
You could have chosen any girl.
You know what I mean? He chose the worst thing. He could have chosen.
Nah.
You back in that, yeah? You like your water, yeah?
Damn right.
But he's gonna have
London
soap,
water, bro.
soap sticking on them.
You know what I mean,
Nah,
man? Subhanallah, bro. You look at the shower, bro. The lime scale that's on there, bro.
Oh, man.
I like it.
Bro, I change my shower head every week, bro.
It's amazing to have you guys here.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
This is something, we're doing this year. Collaborating with content creators that we relate to, we find inspiring, and that we see in ourselves, So to have you guys as the first collaboration of the year, it's
It's our pleasure. Absolutely our pleasure.
It's
amazing.
a big honor. That's a big honor for us.
So for the benefit of the viewers,
Yeah,
who are you and what do you guys do?
that's a very big question.
I feel like he's been on the floor today, so I'm gonna let him go.
So we are Inspyre. I would say the inception of it was we were two guys just trying to, make skits, try to do YouTube and all that kind of stuff. And then there was a brief period where we also had a spoken word phase.
Talk about that.
Huh?
We don't talk about that anymore.
Yeah, we had a brief period. I feel like did you guys have a
You're East African, bro. It's in our blood. It's gonna happen, bro.
Yeah.
I had. If I even tell you the moniker I had, bro,
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't.
No,
I don't-
go on.
Guy.
No,
Let us know, go on, bro.
everyone had that
Coming
phase.
up, man.
Bro, I've got videos of him singing.
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 Yeah, knows, yeah.
This guy's a poet,
Chill.
bro.
Episode coming up, bro. Do you know what I mean? I'm editing this, bro. It's getting cut.
Bro, I'm putting it in there.
Yeah, so I feel like everyone kind of had that. I don't know if did you have that moment as well?
Nah, man.
Nah, I
not
know you
creative.
had the slide.
Bro,
where
I'm a
you were
pretender. I'll be honest with you. Not a creative bone in my body.
Yeah, but so we had that, and then but I'd say when we proper started getting more and more consistent was with the podcast, and we're two essentially, I would say, at heart writers, storytellers, even though we haven't kind of been writing as much, but before we used to like pretty much even send each other like the stuff that we were writing, all these kind of stuff. So we were getting back into reading, and then as we were kind of getting back into reading, that's when Mo came with the idea essentially from you guys, Conflicting Critics, when you guys had that little bit, and then he was like, why don't we basically do that, but instead of reviewing movies, we just kind of review books. And it kind of made sense because I wanted to kind of get into reading as well to work on my writing. So then I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, just put one mic between us. And then we basically started doing it like that. So essentially, Inspyre, what we are at heart storytellers, and we come on this podcast where we talk about stories, we talk about the books or film or something like that we've kind of sometimes it doesn't even have to be something we've resonated with, but just trying to pick out a few things that we kind of like from it, and then stuff that we would use in our daily lives, I guess.
Also, for both of us, like we both like aspiring creatives, like professionally, we both get to a point where we're full-time creatives, whether it's most likely like it might not be from podcast, but like whatever means we choose, like video making for him. I do a lot of graphic design work, and both of us wanted to be like full-time creatives, like from a young age. So I think that's something that we realized and we wanna work towards. So like we've had a lot of like really interesting guests on the podcast from like all sorts of different backgrounds, like whether it's authors, designers,
Directors,
directors, like people like from really interesting backgrounds, like Rufaro, for example.
Also known as Big Jimmy Jones from Jailhouse. Don't know if you guys the yellow glove.
Like the last, like we had the last guest on who wrote a book called Privatize the Mandem, where he's trying to like basically publicize the idea of owning our own like estates, but he like made it in more of a blueprint kind of thing for people to kind of like get guidance from on how to actually go down that route in a like progressive way, and like not just constantly being like this whirlwind of struggle when it comes to like housing for all of us immigrants. So like that's a big issue for us, right? Like I moved, like when I came to London, I think I've moved 11 times since I came to London at 3 years old. Yeah, I know Shamaki, like he was living in North London, like he was pretty close to me. So both of us, like we've known each other for 20 years now, which is fun.
That's amazing.
But yeah, we went to the same school, we were in the same area, and then like literally, what was it, 5 years ago when you moved?
Now like six years ago.
That was like the first big move you had, right? But that was like a wretched move for you, right? Like that was, even for us, like his house was like the community, like all of our boys would meet up there, like all of us would link up and like play FIFA, do all of this stuff in it. So even for all of us as friends, we were like, yo,
Dynamics.
Destabilize the whole network.
It's like you see how the Tories are closing down all the youth centers and that. That's how it felt. Yeah, that's how it felt, innit? I'm telling you, man.
Think about the children.
Trust me. You kept us all on the streets. I'm telling you. Yeah, God bless his mother. Man.
I love it.
But yeah, man. So like for us, like we want to be creative. So like getting on creative guests, like reading books from different backgrounds. So for us, it's not just about like productivity books or just fiction books. We mix it up a lot. Sometimes we read biographies, sometimes we don't just talk about books. Sometimes we talk about other things, like just around the field of creativity and
like
to
also kind of touch up on that. There was a book that we covered by his daughter Mona Afrah was the guest that we had, and she basically translated her dad's work from Somali, Muhammad Dahir Afrah, and it was like a big book in Somalia, and obviously it was the first time I actually read. I'll be honest, I didn't read it in Somali. I read it in English, but it was the first time I kind of read a Somali book, you know. And then it was interesting in the sense of understanding, from different cultures, people write in completely different ways. Like, for example, here, a lot of editors and stuff will say, when you're writing, don't head hop too much. So don't speak in what he's thinking about or what he's thinking about in the same chapter, kind of like keep it like focused. One person. Yeah, and focused. But like here, he was speaking in different people's perspectives. Everyone now kind of had their own thoughts, but it didn't hinder the story in any way. In fact, anything, it enhanced it. So then that kind of stuff there, you're like, okay, wow. So you can take different things from, you know what I mean, different cultures, and especially if your own culture, and to try and use it in your own kind of storytelling. So that's I think the amazing thing is about the guests that we've kind of had on our show. Yeah, and like just bringing it back to our name, like we wanted to share what we learned with all the people. That's why we came up with the Inspyre, like from the jump, Inspyre with a Y in the middle. Inspyre with a Y, damn right. Yeah, so like at the end of it is always like about also giving back, and I'm like the oldest boy of a big family, alhamdulillah. So like I want to be able to, for my siblings and stuff, to have a point of reference that'll actually be useful. But also for us in our careers, it kind of loops back in. So it kind of all envelopes in one nice little package that we really want to make it work. So yeah, and that's why we believe in it, Inspyre. And, appreciate you guys for having us on.
Listen, it didn't make sense for us not to have you guys as the first. You know, so this just makes natural sense. You know, for the start to be with you guys. So in that vein, I think creativity and being in these fields and working in these fields it's incredibly enriching and it's incredibly interesting, but it's fraught with so much uncertainty. Yeah. And I think what I find really interesting is, the inflection point, so the why. What made you start? So in order to really understand where this came from, I really want to understand you guys more. So talk to me about, how young were you when you really felt that creativity kick in, when you realize, okay, I'm not just do you know what I mean? I'm not just a 1 + 1 = 2 guy. Do you know what I mean?
Up to
Do you know what I mean? These guys more. I don't want to try to cut into people, equations, all this nonsense, bro. You know what I mean? I love because I know for me, creativity started with the idea of, I didn't like the fact that 1 + 1 = 2. I didn't like something so definite and defined.
Really at the start.
Bro, I've got stories. It definitely was.
It annoyed me.
Yeah.
And I think for me, the inflection point was when I was doing my English GCSEs. My teacher telling me that you don't need to, there's no such thing as a right answer. So, because he was giving us, he was talking us through the essay and that we had to do and what he was expecting from us. He said, listen, and someone asked him a question. It was in response to that question that he said, listen, there's no right answer. So you're asking the wrong question. There's no right answer. I don't care what viewpoint you have, just convince me.
Yeah.
And that was for me, it's like, yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I love the fact that
You finally got the right teacher.
100%. Because obviously I've been studying English, but this was sorry, not English. It was English A levels, not English GCSE.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was at English A levels at college that I had that moment. Like, yeah, I love that. I love the idea that you're not gonna try to put me in a corner. You're not gonna try to put kind of a frame around what I can say or can't say or how I can approach something. As long as I do it convincingly enough, you're going to be okay with it. And I love that. So that for me was a start point. And then it expanded. So for you guys, getting into this field, and I know, Mohammed, you expanded a little bit. You said that, you want, it's not just about books, or it's not just about reviewing books. You really want this to be full-time. You really want to, be in this field. So there's a difference between being creative and being in the creative field, right? And wanting to do this full-time. So tell us
Real
more.
people.
Yeah, actual real people. So tell us more about, what kicked off the creativity, and then what kicked off the need to want to do this, because you can be creative in your own personal space, right? But doing this, being in the public, wanting this to be full-time is a massive step into the unknown. So walk us through that, please.
Trust that.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So creative careers, right, as a whole, like back in the day, like in the times, like let's say Van Gogh, for example, he didn't get his flowers until after he died, right? And like for a lot of us from like our type of community, there's no such thing as like, oh, you're gonna drop everything you do. As you guys said in our part of the podcast, you can't just drop everything you do and like just start becoming creative. And for me, like as a way of life, I just can't see myself doing anything outside of really utilizing my most creative talents, like as a full-time thing, like throughout the day. And I've been working in IT for like the last 9 years, and it's been really like killing that creative side of me. So like ever since we started the podcast, so 7 years ago or so, like I've always been of that idea that I'm just gonna work towards like become like getting out of this field, just so I can be able to really express myself like full time. Like I don't want to be like limited to a certain amount of hours during the day, And like for me, like going back to starting, like how did I start thinking about creativity and stuff? I think just as a kid, I had a big family, so I was always trying to find ways to just enjoy myself by myself, So like I'm always in a tight space. Like I was in bunk beds from birth till like when I got married.
Listen, I understand that.
I was like, I ain't gonna take a bunk bed into marriage either, but it might have to be that way. Yeah, but yeah. So like I think finding that space for myself, like that was a struggle. So like once I started getting into books and stuff, funnily enough, like both of us where we grew up, there's a library about 10-minute walk away. Like that's the first library where I like really I got stuck into books and like I was proper book for a minute. Like especially coming into this country, I wasn't born here. I was born in Kenya, and then I came here at 3. But for some reason, I think because of the way we were raised, it's like speak when you're spoken to, don't speak if you don't have anything useful to say. Like I was very, very quiet and mute, and like there was an extreme lack of confidence in myself, and expressing myself was like there's no such thing in it. So it was physically limiting, I think. So because of all of these factors, like once I started getting into the worlds of like reading and like fiction and stuff, like I'm like, yo, like this is like all these different worlds I can delve into. And then I started like writing myself as a kid and like drawing. I was drawing a lot more than I was writing. Like I was seriously into my drawing, and I'll do all sorts of stuff that will annoy my dad. Like funnily enough, he was into tech like back in the day. Like he had these fat like books that had like coding books, right? But he never like really got into it. But he also like always had like computers lying around and stuff. And like me as a creative mind, like at that point, like if I was left by myself, I'll find like these little computers and stuff, and I'll break them apart, and I'll like try and. In my head, I'm like, I'm doing this Iron Man thing. I'm reverse engineering. Trust me. I'm thinking I'm reverse engineering. I'm just breaking the whole thing in the same manner. Yeah, I'm just mashing it up in it. Yeah. But in my head, I'm like, yo, I'm gonna make this into man. Yeah,
This is me.
Yeah, so
Come engineer.
Yeah, literally. We engineered my title from then, innit? Yeah. But then I got into school and stuff, and then school I really enjoyed like history, like learning all these different stories and stuff, and then art, like it actually allowed me to like really express myself, like you said, and like DT as well, like in primary school and stuff. Like once I started getting into that stuff, like I've always like just developed into like in my free time as a child and into adulthood, like I'll always be doing something like drawing, just using my hands in whatever way possible. And then like reading, like just that was probably the most consistent thing for me throughout my life. All of us like going to Duxie and all that stuff, so like we're reading, like, but because of that, I think like I grew my vocabulary a lot. I gained a lot of confidence. Like that's the thing we talk about a lot in our podcast. Like fiction reading, people don't recommend it as much, but growing up, like the fictional characters that we looked up to, like they always held like high values, and like they held like strong morals that we also aligned with, and like especially like society back then was a bit more different to how it is now, right? So like for us, there were things to look into and aspire towards in fiction, and I really clung onto that like growing up. And then like you just went to adulthood, and I was like, I didn't know what I wanted to do in my career. Dropped out of uni, and I just ended up doing an apprenticeship against the will of my family, of course. But it was like the first decision I made for myself in it. But it was also like, okay, now I need to figure out what I want to do, like with my creative side, because I just got to get it working in it. And eventually led into this podcast, and it's all kind of linked together, and that's why I really want to make it all work now, you know?
Yeah.
Like intentionally. I think intention was the thing I was lacking throughout that whole period, but now I'm like really at the point of, like you said before, like my why is really strong, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Shamaka?
Yeah, so I mean, I think a lot of it is kind of similar to Mohammed. I think from the get, I was just really into stories and storytelling, like coming out the womb, just straight telling the story. You know what I mean?
Oh mate, there's one skit that he done that was crazy. It was like it was a YouTube video, and he's talking like he was in his mom. He was in his mom's womb, and he's talking to her or something. He's saying something crazy, innit? Send them the clip. They're gonna put it.
It wasn't inside the womb. That's a bit weird. It was when I came straight out the womb.
Okay.
I was just like,
Listen, he's trying to put it in,
Sure, inside the womb.
Nah. But no, from the jump, just interested in stories. Especially, I think even my dad, he was very much into that kind of stuff. He was vlogging before vlogging was even kind of a thing, whether it was like with the webcam or whatever it was. He was just like, oh, look at this and look at that. So there'll be like hella DVDs and movies. And one of the first early onsets that I had was Lord of the Rings, funny enough. And then that there just hooked me on, and he knows how much I love Lord of the Rings.
You were just walking down the street, you didn't know him. Would you expect that? This guy's a Lord of the Rings nerd.
Absolutely not.
But it is. I found it outstanding.
Was it the books or the movies that hooked you first?
It was the movies. To be fair, I mean, if I was reading the book like that as a little one, that would have been a bit wild. But
I was doing that kind of stuff.
He was doing that. To be fair, he was a bit strange as a child. But I was a normal one playing football.
You're the normal one,
You know what I mean? Going out with my friends and stuff like that. You know, he's like, I've got to finish 6 Harry Potters in like 2 hours. You know, fair enough. You know,
but I'm Harry Potter, man.
No,
trust me. Trust me.
So those are so I was like very much into stories, and then I think especially when I got into kind of secondary school, there was one teacher kind of similar to like Johan, but it wasn't necessarily like there isn't a right or wrong answer. He was just like, we're doing a little creative thing, just tell a story and whatnot, and whatever you can write about, whatever it is. And then I remember I kind of did like a weird kind of horror thing, and then I remember just the feeling of it, the effect that it kind of had on a class. Like everyone was kind of quiet and they were proper like listening to the.
Nah, you're the weird kid, huh?
To the thing. Yeah, and then there was like a little jump scare at the end,
Yeah.
and then they all like kind of went. So and then afterwards, I realized, okay, the impact that it can have if a story is tuned well, so that someone can follow it through the narrative and stuff like that. And then I was like, okay, cool, this is. So I was very much into that, and then moving on forward, it was, I think, before we even did the spoken word, were we sending each other stories and stuff?
Yeah,
Because there was a point where I wrote like a fat like book, but my grammar was shocking. Like I said, because I was a normal kid. You know, my
bad grammar as a normal kid.
my grammar was we're talking. I remember one time like roofs. Is that a word?
What? Roofs?
So like roof, but like as a plural. Is
It's still a word.
Yeah.
Seized.
So I remember.
So the football.
It's the football. There's too many headshots. Yeah. So I remember I sent him.
Let's go back to it. So because of his house and the way like we all grew up, like we're always just visiting randomly. Like we'll play football every weekend, and then most of the time the move was to go back to his house and we'll play FIFA, whatever. And like some of us will be playing FIFA, some of us will be chatting in the background, laptops or whatever. And then like, at one time I'm just walking past and I see him on his laptop, just like writing in it. I'm like, yo, I ain't never seen you write like that, man. Yeah, so then he's like, I'm writing a little something. And he showed me that. And I was like, okay, you got something cooking here.
Yeah.
But then I was like, what, the grammar? The spelling,
Yeah. I was out here. So like that. So the plural of roof, I was out here spelling like ROVES.
Yeah.
Sending it to him. And like, he's just like, bro, what is
That was my entertainment for the weekend.
And I was like, you know what? Maybe I need to read. You know what I mean? Maybe I should pick these books up. You know what I mean? And then, so then that's kind of literally going. I mean, obviously uni and stuff like that. I wasn't fully illiterate. Just wanted to say it. My brother could read.
Graduate.
What did you study?
I started property and planning.
Okay.
For uni, and then so then it was around that time, and then he came with the idea. He was like, since we're writing, might as well do book reviews on books and stuff like that. And then it was like, so I think the why has always kind of remained for me to kind of express and tell stories, and I think or like when it comes to like a review and a summary of things, there's so many ways to kind of break it down, and the kind of ways that we do it in a podcast isn't like a clinical breakdown of word by word, simile is this and this paragraph means. It's just kind of like grabbing the essence of kind of explaining how I would explain it to my younger brother who's more like me into like, you know, the pop culture and stuff like that. And normal kid
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And it's like, how would I break this big book down and digest it for something like that he would understand with the references that we would get. So that's kind of why they're telling the stories, and then that's kind of what inspires as well with the podcast.
I think like you said, like I think that translation factor of like reading, where a lot of us dropped books after school. A lot of people actually say they have trauma because of like they got forced to read in school and they didn't enjoy reading after. For us, like making it entertaining, like reviewing a book as if we're actually discussing it with friends, which it was, that's exactly what it was. I think that made it a lot more entertaining doing it as a collective. I think if I was just doing it by myself, I probably would have lost track of it a long time ago. You know?
Like for example, like Of Mice and Men, I remember.
We haven't reviewed that on the podcast.
Don't mention that book.
Did we?
Bloody hell.
PTSD.
So like the guy.
I went to like there was a lot of white kids in my school. Yeah, when they were reading it out loud, boy, they were enjoying the N-word. They were
enjoying it,
savoring.
Just
Taking the time with it.
They'll be looking
Enunciating.
They'll be looking at me like, you know what time it is?
To be fair, I was actually selected as the guy to say it.
Well, you
by the teacher.
designated analyst.
I just stood up and said it, and I said it well. I said it with a hard R and everything. You know? But like we went back to some books, like I think the Skellig and stuff like that. But when you don't read it with that pressure of like school, you kind of see it in a completely different way. You kind of digest it in your own kind of time, and then you can kind of like appreciate the writer more. Whereas I feel like every book that's kind of funneled through school, you're not looking at it from the writer's perspective. You're not looking at it like in a deeper sense. It's just kind of like okay, where can I get an alliteration from, and that kind of vibe. One thing as well that I noticed is that majority of like guys, it's just mostly it's like non-fiction, like self-help books that they read, especially the older we get.
Productivity, eh?
Productivity.
I've seen the
books.
video.
Aesthetic productivity.
That's what we're on. We're on the aesthetic productivity. We're not here to like, you know, force people to do craziness, you know, like waking up at 4 a.m. for no reason.
Tell you what,
having
bro.
cold showers.
This morning I was calling him on the way here. I was like, I'm done with aesthetic productivity.
That's aesthetic productivity.
To get to work, man.
Maybe we have to wake up at 4 a.m.
Yeah, I know, right?
Selective aesthetic.
That's me, bro. I gave it 1 week. That's it, bro.
No, it's a selective aesthetic productivity. But like, so that's one thing I kind of noticed. But I feel like the beauty in most books are found in fiction, because I feel like the self-help books is just like, okay, you should do this, you should do that, you should do this, you should do that. Whereas like the storytelling, the being able to digest the information coming in from the book is a lot deeper, and it's a lot more personal. That we could both review the same thing, we could both read the same book, but we would come to different conclusions. And but it's written by the same person, who probably had a different understanding of it themselves, and 3 different narratives from the same book is like it's an incredible thing. Whereas I feel like with movies, it's like everyone kind of knows what's kind of happening. It's quite linear, and this is the same plot. Maybe sometimes you can read a few things between the lines, but most of the time it's like this is the funnel that we're taking you through. So I feel like that's why we kind of cover as well a lot of the fiction books, to try and get people to pick them back up and to actually enjoy the essence of reading. Yeah.
The thing I find fascinating from what you guys have said is how from a young age you guys you had that friendship where you're supporting each other creatively, which is incredible, because it doesn't happen from our background. Being able to read books, write, and for your friend to look at it and edit this and that itself, bro, for me it's a different world to how I grew up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? How has peer pressure shaped who you are today, and friendships?
It's a great question, because I'm thinking while you're asking that question, because like the fact that it just happened to be the day after like during football, the football day, that I just happened to be walking past him to the kitchen or whatever, and I just saw him. Right, I don't think he would have told me, you know, like I don't think he would have told me like, yo, I'm writing this thing, and I wasn't telling him I'm writing this thing either, innit, you know. So like it just happens to be by chance that it kind of worked out. But like it's weird, because it's a very niche interest nowadays. Anyway, it's a very niche interest to have, and like just that small group of friends, like a couple of them happen to have the same interest, and like just purely by chance, alhamdulillah, like that I just walked past and I saw him writing, and I didn't like just keep on going like, oh, he's probably writing something for school or whatever. I just actually inquired, and I spoke to him about it and read through it myself. Like that's the weirdest thing about it. Like you say, it's quite fascinating. And like you said, peer pressure, like in a normal circumstance, I probably wouldn't have asked him. Because of peer pressure, I would probably just like left him to it, and he probably wouldn't have ever told me. So it's very strange. But yeah, I think in terms of like answering the question myself, the peer pressure hasn't. I would say like because of the way I was raised as the oldest boy of a big family. Like when I say big, it's a big family, and I'll tell you off start flying in it. But
it's a big,
yeah,
Mashallah.
yeah. So I feel like because of that and the way my dad pressured me. That was the real peer pressure, you know, like the pops pressure, innit? That's what we call it. PP, yeah. So yeah, but like that pops pressure, yeah. He was always onto me like, yo, you gotta be your own man, like from a young age, innit? Like I don't know what he was like when he was younger but he's the youngest of his family, so I feel like he learned a lot of lessons from his elders, and then he tried to instill that in me, alhamdulillah. So that's definitely made me like into the man I am today. But he really made me think about myself and how I'm gonna reflect on my younger siblings. So I feel like I've been free from peer pressure, alhamdulillah, for most of my life. Like it's just been something that I've not had to come to terms with too much, because I had to be an individual from day one, you know.
It's a bigger problem.
Bigger problem, bro. If I'm not, the belt is there, innit? Yeah. So like, yeah, for me, it was like, yo, your younger siblings are looking at you. You gotta be the man, innit? You gotta be the guy that does things for yourself, and you really think about every action you take. Think about what you want to do before you do it, innit? So like that pressure was really instilled in me from a young age, innit? But yeah, what about you?
I don't think that level of pressure was on me. I'll be honest.
He's a middle child.
Middle child.
Yeah.
Now, I mean second, but is that what was that?
That's basically middle, bro.
What's that rank?
Upper middle. Upper
Upper middle
management,
class. Yeah. So I mean, obviously, it wasn't like a lot of that. I think in terms of like the peer pressure thing, I think it was just I don't think there was a sense of like it was quite serendipitous how it happened between me and Mo. But other than that, I think kind of as I was growing up, I think there was a lot of encouragement as well from my friends in terms of like storytelling aspects of it, the art aspect of it and stuff like that. So I think it was just kind of, for me, just a lot more of like why did I want to write it? That's what I kind of really cared about. And the main reason why I really wanted to write was essentially just to kind of get that same feeling that I had as a kid watching Lord of the Rings, being like, wow, this is
cinema, yeah.
This is everything. I as a 7-year-old, I stood up, tears in my eyes, clapping at the screen. I said, my word, whoever this Peter Jackson guy is, you know, his hands must be made of gold or something. But like having that feeling, and when someone would read like my kind of stuff, initially, like I wanted to do through videos. But then doing it through videos is tough, because now I have to get people to act it. I have to get the setup. I have to get lights, and I was like, I can't do that.
The barrier to entry is very high.
Yeah, it's like it's ridiculous, you know. And so I was like,
what about peer pressure in general then?
I mean, I don't really feel it. I'll be honest. There wasn't really like any pressure.
I feel like, you know, he's got an older brother along, but he's a pretty cool cat. Yeah, I would say it kind of comes back to that as well. Like, you got an older brother, he's a pretty cool cat. So like, I feel like you had less pressure on you to perform. You know?
To be fair though, as well, he gave me my first like ever sense of validation for when I wrote a bit, and then he saw me writing as well. He's like, "What is this thing you're always writing? Just go and read it out," you know. And he's not into books at all. Like he's nowhere near it, you know. So I was like, you know what? Let me just. So I read it out, and then I remember he stood up. He stood up and he hugged me. And he said, yo, what, this is actually phenomenal. And then I remember it was like Ramadan times. So what would happen is like every like iftar, he would be like, go get the laptop and read it. Then it would kind of, I'll be like
update basically.
Updates, on the thing. So I kept writing through the thing, and I was like, okay,
that must be really encouraging.
No, it was. It's a lot better when I read it, so he doesn't see there's no full stops or commas or like
the semicolons. Or he was throwing out semicolons like this.
I was like, I'll just put a semicolon.
You can have one. You can have one.
It's like, maybe I should put it at the start, just to be different. But So then I think that kind of my way of reading it kind of worked in towards my portrayal in terms of the way I'll say things, or like how I'd kind of, you know, work on the cadences and stuff like that. So I think a lot of that kind of did shape my first part. So yeah, for me, it wasn't really peer pressure. I think mostly it was just positive pressure.
Till he came to me, he showed me the book, and I was like, "Oof, you got a lot of work ahead of you, bro." But I like the
Slap me in my
idea.
face.
I think it's really interesting that the contrasts in your stories are very complementary. You know, so there are a lot of points where they complement each other really well. So the role that both your fathers have played in your in the formulation of who you are, it's exhibited in different ways, but the impact is similar. So the role that your father played in you developing your sense of self pretty early, and that creating a pretty solid foundation in who you are, and you accessing creativity pretty early as a consequence, and the role that your father played through his own creativity, sparking that within you. So even though they're different, there's a beautiful symmetry there, and how that has come across in different ways. So it's also the fact that you both have come to reading in different ways, but you've both arrived in the same destination. So how reading for you activated your creativity, and for yourself, Sharmaki, you came into reading and writing through film. So it has a very different, but somehow you find yourself in a similar pathway now. Have you found that your kind of different genesis points, your different starting points, reflects on your creativity or the way you approach storytelling differently now as a consequence of those experiences?
Mind blowing question now. Huh?
Can I just say, I can tell you did spoken word. Wow. Goodness me, I was captivating there. You get one of these?
I need to show you.
I was just like,
Yeah, bro.
wait, that's for me?
That's really me.
Nah. Sorry, you're going to have to say the question again. Wow, what blew me
So
away.
good, you had to do it twice.
But you can start if you want.
No, I want to hear the question again, bro.
So the fact that you have both arrived where you are right now, in your kind of storytelling and creative journeys, and the genesis points being different. So you coming to where you are now almost exclusively through books, and you coming to where you've come to now, the starting point being videos and filmmaking, and that being what inspired you. So I think Mohammed really and truly, he has no leg to stand on calling you weird when at 7 years old he's crying and giving applause to the movie. You know what I mean?
Have you seen Lord of the Rings?
I have. It's an incredible movie. No, it's an incredible trilogy. And it really is. It really is.
You know what's funny? Like Shamaki, I would say, because me, when I was growing up, like probably up until like I was 10, I was very, like I was deep into my, when you say a kid acting like a kid, I was definitely that. Like I was, like we always talk about in podcasts, like I literally used to run around the playground for fun. Like I'll literally run laps like this for fun, purely
You
fun.
use that kid.
Yeah, like I was collecting rocks and stuff.
I take it back. I take it back. I take rocks, that's great.
In his pocket, just to... You want a pebble?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like because of the way I was raised, like I was just doing things for myself, innit? I like in terms of fun.
Yeah.
That's the thing that kids want at the end of the day. Most of the all is to
Doesn't
be
take much,
occupied.
basically,
Yeah. So I was always finding my own ways of having fun. Like that's what it always came back to, and like that just happened to like, fall into reading and like drawing and all this stuff. But there was no like real intention behind like how it came about. But I think that innate childhood, my family like allowed me to have the little pockets of time to develop that, and like that kind of led to where things are today. But I feel like even that in terms of the genesis point, like it's completely different way. I feel like he had a bit more intention about the way he's consuming and stuff, And I think because I'm the oldest boy in my family as well, like I had to figure out things a lot myself. Like he had an older brother, which I feel like it gave him points of reference. Okay,
100%.
we're watching a film today, we're watching a show today. Like my sister, I got two older sisters, they're watching Neighbours and stuff, like they're watching EastEnders. I'm like, yo, I'm the under, innit? So I gotta go find my own fun, innit?
We'll find some pebbles.
Literally, like, I like this colour. That's how it was. But man.
For Salman's question, just doing the work for you. Because of that fantastic.
Please, thank you.
So how do you feel like that affects the way you approach tasks now, or creative tasks now?
I think I've always, like I said, figured things out along the way. I think it just always continued to be the case. but I also like my structure. I think because of the fact that like growing up, you got Duxie, you got school. There's very limited times to express that creativity. You know, I feel like that had actually traveled into my adulthood, but like in a positive way where I like to be organized around my creative time. To be fair, there's ups and downs. You know, there's some days where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna today I'm gonna do this. Today I'm gonna do this. And then when those things don't work out, I feel like creatively, I feel really bad about myself because I'm like I didn't find that time to express myself in that way. So yeah, definitely, I think most of the time I just figure things out and then I learn along the way, and then yeah, that creativity just comes out and it works. But yeah, now as an adult, I think I really enjoy the structure as well, which is funny because yeah, most creatives they just want to go with the flow. So like that intention as well. Like as Muslims, I think intention is such an important part of our lives. And if you don't have that intention and you just go with the wind, like things just don't progress consistently. So like as an adult now, I'm really trying to avoid that go with the flow mentality and really have intention behind everything I do, even if it's like actually doing something creative. I'd rather not say I'm just gonna get to the idea and when it comes, eventually it will come. I really try and force it, like force the creativity, you know. And it tends to work out like sooner or later. Like for example, in graphic design, like Photoshop, there's a blank canvas. Like even if I'm drawing something, I try to prompt myself to actually think about things. So I'll say, okay, rather than just coming with the idea and then just going with it, I write down prompts, potentially sometimes even using like ChatGPT now. Like things have evolved so much now, you know. So I'll like write down a list of prompts and I'll start going through them, and then eventually one of those prompts will click, and then I'll get an idea, and then I'll start thinking about it. And like reading is a great point of reference for that, because as I'm reading, I get so many ideas from these books and authors that I don't get as much from like video content, you know. So that's kind of where my I think all of these things have evolved to the way I work now, you know.
Wow. I think he's kind of put me in a box because I'm not necessarily as structured. I'm more kind of free flowing, actually.
Yeah.
Hipster kind of
absolutely,
thing. But there was a good quote that I got from George R. R. Martin, the guy that wrote Game of Thrones. He basically said that with his stories, he kind of knows his direction from A to B, but then the route along the way, he'll be like, okay, we might take this route here, we might take that route here. So that's kind of like the essential approach that I usually take. I kind of know where I want it to end, but that route there, I kind of like let it fulfill itself and that kind of thing. Because I think for me, it's when it's too structured, so what I've realized is that the chances of nuances being there is very little. So nuances in terms of like, let's say if we're talking in the context of stories, right? Nuances in terms of character. Who's this guy? Where's he come from? Where's he going? You know, if I know exactly every single point and there isn't that gray area about him, then he doesn't feel like real to me. Because I think we're all gray characters, you know. I think one interesting thing is that a lot of these Russian writers in the 19th century, Dostoevsky and all these kind of guys, what made them so famous and like people constantly read them now is that their main thing didn't have an adversary. It wasn't like this Voldemort on the other side that's like all bad and then Harry's all good kind of side. The same thing with Lord of the Rings. It was kind of like there was this one guy and he's sick but he's also okay at the same time, and you kind of don't really know. He's a bit unpredictable, which is like the self in a way, and I feel like the only way I'm able to kind of get to those kind of positions or those kind of areas is by kind of allowing the character to breathe and to make his own decisions rather than knowing exactly this person he's going to meet here and this person he'll do that with and stuff like that. So when I'm approaching something, I kind of like to do it knowing where sort of starting here, ending here, but kind of along the way we'll kind of like let some leeway, leg room, see what happens. And yeah, that's kind of essentially how I'll do it, and how I guess it's kind of interesting how you said it before, because I think with him being more structured, you kind of see that from, as he was explaining, his dad and stuff like that, and the books and Whereas me, it wasn't necessarily, it was more free flowing as a kid to be creative. And now it's more like that in the way that I kind of approach things. So yeah, it was a sensational question.
And I mean, the answer was even better.
Well,
I love it.
So guess one of these.
Come on, always.
No, I love it. How has social media influenced your creativity, your thought process, the journey you've had so far, and what's your relationship with social media today?
I was gonna ask you guys the same question. I can't lie, especially like so you talked about your 10-year anniversary, right?
Yeah.
So like the way things have changed in terms of like first of all the people who are your audience, like they've all grown up, right?
Yeah.
And like they've got their young siblings, some of them have kids. Like that's like it's such a complete different world to where we were like 10 years ago, you know. So like I think social media as well for us like it's always been an interesting factor. For myself, like I didn't like when we started Inspyre, for example, we didn't have any social following whatsoever. We didn't have any like network or anything. So we just started putting things out, and then people just started suddenly following and listening, and that was very interesting for us. So then we like consistently pushed like aggressively on social media. We were always like from like back in the day where we were dropping a lot of clips and stuff. So like we were just consistently like aggressive on social media and like always looking at the numbers, looking at like who we should reach out to. But like nowadays, for some, like, I don't know if nowadays I don't know if I'm drained or if I'm tired of it, but I do feel like I'm just gonna put things out, and whoever listens. I'm not gonna like try and force it into people's mouths. Like before, I was DMing people all the time. I was like, "Yo, check it out, share it." And like I had this expectation on people, which I think is a bit of an unfair expectation. Like to like if you're my friend, you've got to listen, innit? Yeah,
And support.
Yeah, and buy my merch and all sorts, you know, pay my bills and all that. But so nowadays I think my expectation of people has just changed, and I know like everyone's got their interest, and like I can't force someone to like something they're not interested in from the jump, in it. So like social media now, I just use it more for like getting inspiration more than anything. Like I just absorb content more than I put it out and force it into other people's mouths. I would say that's kind of my relationship with it. But I think it's still quite unhealthy. I think I'm not on social media a lot, but like I don't feel comfortable posting all the time. Like before, I would share a lot more of my stories. I'll share a lot of things, but now I keep things a lot more limited. I don't post pictures of myself like that. Like it's very rare, you know. So I don't know what's changed. Like is it just adulthood? I don't know, maturity. But yeah, I share a lot less. I consume more, which is a weird balance because like someone who doesn't work in the full-time creative field is also the factor of like sometimes you're consuming too much and you're not putting out enough. So as someone who feels like I've got to express myself in a creative way, or I don't feel as good, like I literally feel bad about myself, like because I'm not doing like what I feel like my heart really desires, you know. So like the balance isn't good there. So like one of the reasons why I'm trying to push the podcast and doing more things with the intention nowadays more is to achieve that balance of consuming but also producing content and like fulfill that balance inside myself, you know. That's where like my relationship with social media is a bit of a weird one, but I feel like everyone is a bit like that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for me it was like social media is an interesting one because obviously when they first kind of kicked off, it was to be like, oh, I can speak to you online. This is sick. But then the advent of like Instagram and these kind of different things, it then started to slowly become a bit more than that, where it's like, okay, but this is also what I'm doing, and this is what I've made, and this is where I'm going, and it's like it's a lot. Now it kind of feels like for me, social media is just a platform to kind of showcase yourself. It's not like getting to know each other anymore. It's not really community driven. It's just kind of like
selling yourself.
Yeah, selling yourself and like, look at me, look what I'm doing kind of situation. And that has driven a lot more different kind of things because before, like we were saying in our podcast before, that everything was a bit more funneled. So like this was the cool guy, like 50 Cent, for example, and this is how he dresses. And now everyone kind of wants to dress like that. But now, like the youth and there's like less scenes and less people want to be like this guy. Like the same person you would consider hipster isn't just a hipster. He also likes football, but he also likes this. And now people go online and they see different clothings, different things that they like, and they're like, okay, I'm gonna take that. Everyone has like a massive like bag, and they're like, okay, I'll take this thing from the internet, I'll take this thing from the internet. So it's kind of like before, whereas it was a lot easier to kind of find people and find the community, and now it's like so many different individuals within their own kind of little communities that it's harder to
That's the funny thing.
find that kind of solution. So like when it comes to like even promoting and sharing the stuff that you're doing, it's kind of like the first barrier is like the friends and family that you know. They'll be like the first maybe 50 to like 100 kind of people that'll see your stuff. But then you gotta crack that to get to the actual community, to your actual audience that is waiting for you to basically come through. And it's quite an interesting one for me personally, because I'm not really a big fan of like social media like that. I don't really like it. I don't really.
I used to be like, yo, shut up, go tweet.
Of like kind of like how it is, because I think for me to get a little bit vulnerable, it's a bit like it's a bit Sisyphus, you know. It's like the very task that he has is to get this boulder over the mountain, but that's the hardest thing that he can't do, and that's kind of what it is. It's a place I don't really like, and not something I like to constantly do, constantly share, and be dissatisfied with the no instant gratification, but then having to constantly do that again. It's like a weird thing. It's like you're hurting yourself, but you have to kind of do this kind of thing. So like that's kind of where I sit with, I guess, social media. That I feel like if it wasn't something that for the podcast, stuff like that, I would have to actually promote, I don't really think I would really be
social media at all.
Yeah, using it like that, except to get to know someone.
Let me just jump on the back of that point. You know what's also interesting is like I feel like we're in an era of self-expression. Like younger people seem to know their identity more, and they seem to, even with like clothes, like you said, like the fashion sense. Like younger people seem to know what they want to wear more. Remember, like back in the day, 15-year-olds, like there's so many memes of like 15-year-olds just wearing like silly stuff in it, like girls always talking about like they wear them short skirts with like leggings underneath and all that stuff. But now like they're all like just trying to dress like Kim Kardashian or whatever. But I feel like we're in an era of self-expression, like where everybody really has a style, but the community the community aspect has really dropped. Where like there's like all time loneliness. Everyone seems to be busy with their own things, but not really trying to meet up and link up. And like that's a common issue that I think a lot of people are aware of now. But it's a challenge that we all face. But even with the things like promoting ourselves and stuff, like that's a big like since we started the last season, I feel guilty because I don't promote as much as I used to. But I also like feel a bit weird about seeing my face everywhere. So every time because you know like you're already following the accounts, for example, you got your personal account and then you got your group account, right? So then I'm like I just hop on Instagram. I'm like I don't have the Instagram app, by the way. I delete all the social media apps, so I just go on the web browser. And I just see my face on Inspyre account, innit? I'm like, oh, God, like, yeah. And I never used to cringe at that when I was younger. But for some reason now, as an adult, I don't know why, but I always I pick up on all the little micro movements that I do, and it just feels weird to me now, you know? So I'm like, all these people are seeing this, yeah? And like for some reason, like if you go on our,
you're fine, man.
You go on our YouTube. I was telling him, yo, like on our YouTube shorts, innit? Yeah, I was like, yo, why is it that it's always picking me as a thumbnail?
The algorithm picks
What
him.
is he trying to say?
Bro, I don't know, bro. I'm telling you, he's like, yo, there's no
he's got a good smile. That's what it is.
It's because for some reason, like the clips are always of me saying some nonsense in it. So, So then it just picks me up, like laughing at my own jokes, like
No, but sometimes it's even like a joke of mine that it just.
Why does it pick up my jokes? I don't understand the algorithm, bro.
Hey, you're gonna have to take up with YouTube.
Weird.
Can I just say, you know, a brother's gravy is different when he's using Greek mythology to supplement his anecdotes. Do you know what I mean? Man dropping like no, do you know what I mean?
Talking about
That's in there.
I'm just taking notes. Yeah, Greek mythology next time. Say that. That's crazy, man. Allah Barik. I really, really like the points that you two made about, you know, where the culture is right now. Yeah. So how, Shamak, how you said that the community is diffused now,
Yeah.
right? So there is no one kind of sense of what's cool or what's trendy or what's what. Yeah. So like there's so many different communities now, and one person can be multiple things.
Yeah.
And how Mohammed, you said about kids are so much they have so much more self-expression, and they know each other, they know themselves so much more. I've got a question linked to both those points. I think the question it targets both those points, which is do you think that's organic? Do you think that's organic, or do you think that's algorithm driven? Because an argument can be made that for as much as people, as these young kids now are being very self-expressive, it seemed like the culture is very unipolar. It seemed like people are far more expressive, but it seemed like the culture all comes from the same place. Like everyone seems to be talking from, the same vernacular. You see a guy, you see a guy from Kenya and a girl from Dallas, and they have similar talking points, and the culture is very similar, and they connect more than maybe someone from the same culture but different generation. And Sharmaki, that guy who is a hipster but is also into football, but is also into rap. Is that organic, or is that or is that pushed by the algorithm because it means that because he touches so many touch points, his content will be far more diffused, and it will push the algorithm more, and it will push engagement more. It's something I've constantly thought about.
That's a good point. I feel like I think it's two things. I think for one, it's like now there's just a lot more options that people can have. But number two, before, especially if I think back to like 2016, so in the context of like, let's say our kind of like Somali kind of scene, right? Before, like it felt like anyways that it was a lot more homogenous in the sense of you're looking for something and then you're like this adventure on the internet and you're like, okay, I need to find Somali people that are kind of doing this, and there's like a scene, there's a flag here of like you guys, Sheko, all these like the network, whoever was doing it kind of at that time, there's a flag here and you all kind of congregate there, and the same YouTube thing is showing all of you guys and it's all like in that area. They're like, okay, cool. So you kind of sit there, and then, but now it's kind of like there's one flag here, one flag there, and then in between all of that is like so many different offshoots and like different people that you can kind of go into, and different places that you can like so many different options that you've got, you know what I mean, right now. And I feel like that's kind of what it is. It's like TikTok, for example, is crazy because all you have to do is just scroll, and then their algorithm is a lot better than anyone else's by far right now. So it's showing you 6 different things that you would like in those little things that I was saying. So like the football, the hipster stuff, let's say if you're into Greek mythology, all of this kind of stuff. It's like one video is that, the next video is the next thing you like, next thing. So you're just kind of like, you're not looking for your people anymore. It's
being fed
different things are coming to you now. So now it's not like so then that's why that community thread now is thrown out bigger. The fishing line is thrown out bigger because someone from Kenya is like, okay, I like hipster stuff. The algorithm knows, and it's now we're all seeing the same video again and again and again kind of thing, where it isn't like she's on that journey to find that hipster person she likes, or the hipster community she likes. It's just kind of like, it is the people that are thing, and then they all kind of speak the same way, and then it's all like one big internet language, and then it's just, that's I think kind of how I've seen it, or kind of deduced what you were talking about before.
I think it's accessibility. Everything is just far more accessible than it ever has been. And like the fact that kids like nowadays, like people say like the iPad generation or whatever, that's a fact that a lot of people, like, they're too busy to look after the kids. Nursery costs are all-time high. What are you going to do? Your work, or are you going to be constantly distracted by your toddler? No, you're just going to give them a phone, and then they're going to go on TikTok or whatever, and then they're going to be fed whatever the media wants them to see. So I definitely think that it's inorganic. but because of the variety of things that are accessible to everybody from young age to old age, there's still like aspects of your personality can still kind of feed into what you're consuming as well. So it's a weird mixture where we're in a very weird place, like because we were all born in an era where there was no internet, like there was very limited internet access, and all of a sudden everybody's got internet access in the world, and like there's community, but then there's loneliness, and I think that's where it all feeds back into. So it's a mixture of both, I would say, 100%.
It's actually kind of crazy how like now with the advent of like the internet and all these social media stuff that people are more lonely, which is wild because it was the very thing that was meant to connect everyone. Like you could speak to someone from across the world now, essentially, but now it's like people have it and they feel more outside of the community, outside of their own loop, because the funny thing is there is no community because everyone is individual now. So it's like the social media promoted individualism, be your own self, this is what you like, blah blah blah, and you're like, okay, yeah, this is who I am. And then you, as you kind of go on, you're like, oh, but there isn't anyone else that's really kind of like that. And then now you're in this back to weird loop of like, oh, but everyone else is over there, or like there is no community I'm really kind of part of. So it's kind of interesting now how much social media has changed things now
100%.
in terms of the loneliness, you know.
No, 100%. Guys, this has been absolutely fascinating. We just want to round it up by asking you, what's the plan for Inspyre for this year?
So that's a very good question.
We haven't even addressed that on our own season, you know.
Goodness.
We just dropped the new season, so you guys are pretty early guests into the season.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the mission stays the same. The mission stays the same. We want to keep on inspiring people, keep on developing our creativity,
Inshallah.
and like just taking it to new heights, getting more interesting guests on like yourselves, getting people on from like I think challenging ourselves as well. That's another thing that we want to try and do more. Like getting people on who will challenge our thoughts as much as like be aligned with our thoughts. I think that can be interesting. So like I said, I think before we were the mics were on, we were talking about one of our guests, Midge Gillies, who was an author where her book was published in Waterstones, Piccadilly. Like that's like a hot spot of people that come to read from all over the world, innit? So like they'll come to that store specifically because I think he's like one of the first ever like Waterstones, right? So like her book was around like Piccadilly Circus and like how like it just developed throughout history, and then she just covered on so many different topics throughout that, and like during the war, and like she talks about how glass, like you know the storefronts, like how that was created, how that was publicized, how that was like became a popular thing. She talks about like neon lighting in the stores, like how that became a popular thing. Like she just talks about so many different things, and like it was like such a off-topic thing for us, like completely different, but it was so interesting as well. And like having been able to have that discussion with the author, like it challenged a few of our thoughts, and it made it made me really think about things, and like that really feeds back into my personality and my creativity. Like I said, because that all like I really feel like my creativity embodies my personality and vice versa. So like all of this content that I'm seeing, all these conversations we have, like it really helps me develop and potentially, like I said, have that butterfly effect on the people around me as well, and potentially help them develop as well. So yeah, that's what we want to keep on doing, keep on reaching new heights.
Yeah, that's perfectly said.
Yeah. Guys, this has been a fascinating conversation, and genuinely speaking, I can be here for another couple of hours, and really combing through these topics and getting into the details and into the grains of it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make everything you do a success, and enrich you in everything that you do. And if you love this conversation, please comment, like, and subscribe.
Straight to the camera.
You know what I mean? Listen, I'm trying to get them. Listen, the numbers have to go up now. Impact and all of that, man. Your analytics. Inshallah, this is a year of fruition and growth, development for us all. Thank you so much for watching. As per usual, I've been Salman and Dr. Abdel Fattah. Dr. Abdel Fattah. You didn't do 6 years of medical for no reason, Dr. Abdel Fattah. You'll be seeing us, inshallah, on a regular basis every Saturday, having incredibly engaging conversation with illuminating guests like these like these stellar gentlemen. Until the next one, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wow.
Amazing,
Hey.
guys. Well, genuinely, it's